Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna. Here basically we are talking about one of the topic that is city creation. In city creation, basically we are discussing one topic that is India account. One of the person told that. Let's basically connect with one more topic that is water. Then basically it connected to water basically. So water in basically India account, water also basically comes. So India basically know that total water basically how much India have. If they don't have, then basically you have to collect the data. There must be 100% because it's a already 100 to 100 year old basically software industry has came. So this data 100% basically might be having that total water basically exists with India. India is not taking basically water basically from other land or basically the pipe supply basically of other countries not basically coming to India. It's not like that basically. One of the person told that ऐसा तो नहीं है कहीं the country basically who created India, they basically might have done long before this everything that ये यहाँ से हम पाइप उछड़ेंगे मतलब पाइप will pipe basically had taken from that side and we will say that basically by India you are getting water basically you are getting water you are getting water. So that type of thing basically might possible. But that basically India can currently basically India got the education. Currently basically India got educated. The parliament people basically now in parliament people basically the educated people are also basically there. Now basically you can't make fool to them basically. Educated people are also basically there in parliament house. Educated businessmen are also basically there in India. So you can't basically make fool to this people basically. So one of the person told that water basically can we basically calculate the water basically. One of the person told that because one of the person told that Sunil you have not got the job now basically. It might possible that basically when basically you might be going searching for job and you might get the house you have to take the house you will basically shifting your family will start this that basically and everything. So it might possible that water basically crisis basically might be the reason basically. So one of the person basically told that also. Because currently it's a water crisis na, basically in Bangalore. Half of the population of IT industry basically left. They basically are working from home. Working from home means working from Uttar Pradesh, working from Bihar, that home basically. Working from Gujarat. So that home basically. Not basically work from home means Bangalore city basically. So one of the person told that the Bangalore city basically one person basically asked Sunil basically तेरे को कितना पानी चाहिए यार basically how much water basically you want one basically bucket for स्नान and within one bucket basically the cloth basically can be washed. So two bucket basically water was not with the Bangalore city. One of the person basically asked the question. One of the satellite person actually asked. भाई मतलब दो डोल पानी नहीं था मतलब दे बेसिकली थॉट अप टू दैट बेसिकली हम बेसिकली वाटर क्राइस बेसिकली विल कम इनटू द प्रॉब्लम इफ वी विल गिव जॉब टू सुनील नायर बेसिकली. सो टू डोल मतलब टू बकेट वाटर बेसिकली वाज नॉट विद द Bangalore. Few people told that basically water crisis basically might be the problem. No? Basically, they might have that. That's why basically they might not have given the job basically. Few people told that basically the software company basically in Karnataka software company basically they have lots of ego. They don't give job to the outsiders. Especially basically they don't give job to the Malayalis. But then one of the person told that there are 25% Malayalis in Bangalore city are basically. Then one of the person told that you have any enemy with Malayalis basically. Then Sunil Nair told that no bhai I don't have enemy in Malayali. Because I basically don't have enemy basically. Because I am that kind of person basically if anybody slaps this I give this also basically. But the thing basically happened my I have given this also and somebody basically taken blood from back side also basically. That is the stool basically. Up to that level basically peace person basically Sunil R. Nair is. So one of the person told that. Then also basically that means basically these groups are telling that basically what they might have thought basically that Sunil R. Nair basically is not supposed to get job. There might be some reason basically. Without reason basically they don't basically do anything basically. Then basically one of the person told that क्या reason हो यार Bangalore city basically not Bangalore city basically but currently I am searching in Vadodara also. There also basically I am not getting the job. So software company basically is creating problem basically. And mostly basically people are working from home. So one of the person told that there are some issue basically. There is some issue basically. There is some personal issue basically. There are some personal issue basically. Because without issue basically nobody do anything basically. So personal issue is the problem basically. So one of the person told the personal issue basically what might be the personal issue. So in accounts basically, in India account basically, each person's accounts are maintained basically. In that basically the personal issues are also basically one of the entry you can say. Because it has connected to the personal basically now, not basically it's like that basically. It connected directly to the personal basically. Because in Bangalore city 25% Malayalis are there basically, but you are the one Malayali basically who has not got the job in Bangalore and in Vadodara also basically. That means connecting to the some personal basically. So it is connecting to some personal issue basically. So it is connecting to some personal basically. So another person told that. Here actually we are discussing India account and you basically connected to Bangalore, you basically connect. I am just taking as an myself example basically. But in real basically the accounts are handled like this way only basically. When you are basically applying for, assume that basically when you created the passport newly basically I will take my example. I basically want to move to South Africa long before basically. That time basically one of the institute manager basically told that basically you have to give the interview to pass us South Africa. So you basically do one thing, you create the passport also. So we will basically send you to South Africa. We will send you to South Africa. So I taken the passport. That time basically my passport was blacklist. You can just imagine basically when the passport was issued basically, that time only the passport was blacklist. Why? Because past history basically. That means one of the person told that the जो हम करते हैं, that means basically somebody is watching basically. Then one of the person told that no basically it's not like that. It's a energy basically. The power company and nuclear power company basically collects each and every people energy, and they basically, for example, I am basically having these specs for 1 or 2 minutes. So energy company will track that basically without watching me basically. That I had a specs for 2 to 3 minutes, and it was containing this glass, this, this. I basically am having this mask basically here in head. So they will easily track basically. I am having this coat basically, Marks and Spencer coat basically. So they will track basically. Purchased from Haryana basically. That also they will track. So you can just imagine basically. So one of the person I basically touched this mobile while having the communication of the this video basically, while communicating this video basically. So each and every activities basically which you do now basically, that is tracked by the nuclear power company. So that activities basically which you do now basically, that connects to balance sheet basically. इसने ये किया, उसने वो किया, इसने ये वो किया, इसने ये किया. When basically child gets birth, he basically will not cry basically. He basically is matlab, he knows that basically he will not cry basically. He don't understand also basically what actually what he basically came for basically. So that time, from that time the punishment started by the Indian government basically. Not Indian government basically, mostly basically connected with the Indian governments. That is the India country basically. Or basically it might possible that who created the India country basically. And it's difficult to track basically. Why? Just see basically BJP is created by whom basically? BJP has created, right? But it's very difficult to track that basically Congress has actually created BJP. Aam Aadmi Party basically. Aam Aadmi Party who created? That is created by BJP basically. To do some certain level of task basically. Which task basically they will do now basically, it might create problem to their BJP party itself basically. So risk task basically are done by the Arvind Kejriwal group basically. So you can just imagine basically how dangerous stuffs basically are. So Congress account is there, BJP account is there, Aam Aadmi Party account is there, Basapa account is there, Samajwadi Party account is there. Each account basically exists in India account. In simple language basically political account. So political account basically exists in India account basically. Software account, that also exists in India account. Software account basically contains what? All software company in Hindustan. In India, whatever software company basically exists, that comes under software account. So one of the person told that software account basically is like that basically. One of the person told that earthquakes accounts are also basically there. That also comes under tax basically. If you don't pay the money, then earthquake will 100% come. Tax earthquake means what basically? One of the person asked the question. One of the person basically asked the question, what actually earthquake is? Earthquake means 100 city created by the chartered accountant for the chartered accountant degree. There basically earthquake happened and half of the city basically ended. So there that was basically earthquake of given to the chartered accountant degree basically. So like this basically one of the person told that data science group basically, that is a software company, they have this project. The project means they might be having 100% basically, but not Indian company, software company basically. But there are few people basically 2% who basically are India, who basically know that chartered accountant degree equal to 1000 cities. There are 2%. They know basically that chartered accountant degree is equal to 1000 cities, tax box equal to 1000 cities. So data science project also basically might be 100% time. So why basically they will track that basically why earthquake happened in chartered accountant area basically. 1000 cities, sorry 100 city equal to chartered accountant degree. So in that 100 city basically why earthquake happened basically. There might be some reason basically. Without any reason basically nothing happens. So whatever basically it might be. So that's why basically each and every chartered accountant people basically did, not only chartered accountant, each and every person basically who are into the, who are basically having life in earth planet, even basically angutha chap people basically who basically doesn't have education, they and their energy, they and their energy basically are tracked basically. So if one normal person basically who is not having the education, their data are basically tracked, then the people who are basically the educated, their data basically might be tracking up to what level basically. They are not basically tracking physically भाई ये क्या कर रहा है, he is basically what doing, he is having video, he is basically just now basically had mobile, the time is 11:51 and the date is basically 27th March 2024. So he is doing basically that basically. So whatever things basically I have done basically, the data will captured by the energy company and power company and nuclear power company one day. But what which day basically, that is very difficult to tell. It might be 2 days after, 3 days after, but they will track basically that I have done this, I have had this video, I basically just after what is the time, after 16:38 basically I had the specs, then basically I had this mask in my head, then basically I had this coat basically Marks and Spencer coat, and I had a button also, and I basically gone back to chair and started speaking about the India account. So up to this level basically the energy group basically tracks. So one of the person to the why basically they are tracking like that. That is also basically one of the question basically, because without any meaning basically nobody tracks. Nobody tracks without any meaning. That also nuclear power company doesn't basically tracks without any meaning. If they do any of the activities, small activities also, there are 100 types of meaning basically. There is question basically, there is a question basically. So few people tell that basically it's connected with the human galaxy, because human galaxy structure basically in universe, it is same like basically human body. Few people says like that because it's, but one person basically can handle the entire human galaxy, that is not possible basically. But there are 900 crore population basically, their energy basically can affect the entire, can affect little bit the human galaxy, little bit basically, and lots of thing, lots of time, lots of not basically, but little bit effect basically can happen. 1 or 2% basically can't do. But 900 crore populations data will 100% get effect, and that data basically will get effect to human galaxy, and it's a risk also, and it's a gamble also basically, you can say. If earth planet basically data, for example one education basically they launched, assume that basically, assume that one of the university, big university launched some education, and it basically was not success. Why? Because when it went to the human galaxy basically, it basically created problem, so that education ended. One education started, they basically succeed. Why? Because the human galaxy data basically, but it takes time basically, it's not like that basically everything happens day or night. But human galaxy basically checks when they basically, that group basically starts that time only basically they say that basically this will not work basically, because they have that type of power basically, because they have that type of power basically. But sometime basically they also gets wrong. Why? Because earth planet is also created by some sort of certain groups, set of groups basically, that is also there basically. So here basically we are discussing what earth planet, Indian earth planet, India account. In earth planet we are discussing India account. and this is very dangerous topic. This is very dangerous topic. So one of the person told that water is also basically one of the problem basically. So India basically don't have the data basically that how many water basically is going to be used within 100 years. So according to that basically they might have planned, because you can't take sea water basically directly basically, you can't use sea water, you have to filter these that basically lots of things basically you have to do, lots of things. And sea is a sea basically, it contains hundreds of countries data, and it's very dangerous to take the sea water and use basically. Why basically I will tell you, because if you are excessive, for example when you taken the water from sea, that time basically assume that basically some enemy country data also came. Data means water basically, so you can't access that water here basically. Why? Because it's an enemy country's water. That is rules basically. But then one of the person told that if this is like that basically, then world basically is using sea water basically. That is also question basically, because there are many countries basically who are directly using the sea water. Assume that basically Ukraine basically, Ukraine is one country basically in Europe basically, European part basically. Assume that they might be using sea water, so it might possible that Russian data also basically might be inside the sea water. It might possible na basically, because they can't track that basically this is Russia water basically, but utilities are there basically, it will say that basically this much part basically in water basically this salt material basically are of Russia basically, and it's very difficult to get out basically, or sorry, to remove that data basically of Russian data basically, because it's not so easy basically. But if you are accessing the Russia data na basically, immediately their hacker will track that basically somebody hacked somebody accessed Russia water basically. So you can just imagine basically how dangerous issue will create basically. And that also basically currently the Russian Ukraine war is ongoing. So few country basically who are basically very cutter enemy, they basically don't use sea water. Otherwise basically Bangalore is basically having the crisis of water. They can't use, basically they are just near to sea water only basically. They can use sea water basically. They can filter it and then basically they can't use. But if you are tracking any of the water basically, the other country basically, for example Russia is a very powerful country basically. If you take Russia, they will track basically, अरे भाई किसने लिया Russia नाम किसने लिया, they will track the, after few days, after 2-3 days basically they will say that somebody taken Russia name basically in Vadodara city, and that also in this Prayosha Heights building basically, because they are up to that level basically, because they are up to that level group basically. So it's very difficult to take the sea water. Then one other person told that the water basically everything basically coming from underground basically, and few basically city basically have their own water basically, that is a water lake is there, that basically is not containing the Russia water, the Ukraine water. That is actually very dangerous question basically, yeah. Because that is also containing basically everything water basically. That is also containing water of Russia. For example, Ukraine basically having one lake, in that basically Russia water is there. Russia water is there basically. It's not like that basically Russia water is not there. It's there basically. Russia water is there basically. In Russia, Ukraine water is also there. But water means what? Ukraine water. Ukraine water means what? Assume that basically there are 1 lakh city in Ukraine, so that 1 lakh city is equal to Ukraine water basically. And if it has generated permanent blood cells in Russia basically, and if basically this is actually very dangerous thing basically, but mostly basically will Russia will might not have done this mistake basically. If they have done, then basically they are going to suffer basically. Assume that basically Russia has used Ukraine water. Mostly basically they have used basically, because each and every country basically are using each and every country's water. Because when you are creating the lake, that time basically the water basically which comes, that comes of each and every country. Few countries are very powerful basically, like America. They don't use any country, few countries water, they are up to that level. Why? Because that technology are up to that level. Whenever the water creation process happens basically, that time basically they separates the certain countries water basically, when water creation basically process basically happens. So they are basically up to that level basically. That's why basically India country basically can do, they can do basically, because India is only passing the power supply to USA, that is the software technology. For example, Microsoft is basically having their software, and they are launching their operating system, they are launching Word, they are launching Excel, they are launching PowerPoint. The power supply basically where from they are getting, they are getting from India only basically. So India also basically might be having this type of technology, that they can separate certain level countries water basically, but they have to do the process very long before basically. So that is also one of the topic basically. So this comes into the accounts basically. Russia taken water, they ignored few water, so that accounts basically in India account basically, it comes that basically Russia has ignored this many water basically. So whenever basically you are creating Russia data basically, it means for example Russia passed a few bananas basically from Russia basically, or basically from some grapes basically from Russia, that time basically you take care basically, because they have ignored that many countries basically. So that's very difficult basically. It seems to be भाई यहाँ से इतना मंगा लो, यहाँ से उतना मंगा लो, but how dangerous it is basically. Sometimes basically it ends the entire country also basically. So one of the person told that to take anything basically from out, any of the country basically, that is also very dangerous basically, very dangerous. Not very, but whatever infinity very comes na basically, that much dangerous basically. Few people say that basically, अरे भाई ये मॉल वालों का बिजनेस तो इतना जबरदस्त है ना, इनको कुछ करना ही नहीं है. They are basically earning in hundreds of crore basically, but see the risk factor basically. ये जो फ्रूट्स वाले हैं, उनका धंधा तो क्या जबरदस्त चलता है. ये सॉफ्टवेयर कंपनी है, इनका धंधा तो क्या चलता है. द पीपल बेसिकली आर इनटू द सॉफ्टवेयर बिजनेस बेसिकली, अरे दे हैव द सो, दे आर अर्निंग इन डॉलर बेसिकली, बट द रिस्क फैक्टर बेसिकली इट्स infinity basically. Infinity means very infinity basically. Why? Because it might possible that basically one of the software company are going to use that software data into human creation, human need creation, into human need creation. Into human need creation. So one of the person told that it's very difficult to have one grapes also inside the city, because it might possible that somebody has sent the grapes and it converts to the permanent blood cells, and that city only ended basically. And the people who had that grapes na basically, immediately they will die through heart attack. So business is very dangerous basically, it's very risky basically. And that also software business is very risky. It seems to be that eClearX का तो मालिक तो देखो 100 करोड़ छाप रहा है. But see the risk factor basically, because if he is having 100 crore basically, that means he has his software basically has used in any of the human needs. It might possible that some fruits basically might have created from his software. But he might not be knowing basically. eClearX basically might not be knowing this. This is very dangerous thing basically actually. eClearX because eClearX account basically which is getting calculated basically, that is share bazaar. That time basically his each and every softwares are calculated. because each software basically are getting used in human needs. That is creation of any other fruits might possible, vegetables might be possible, and he also basically might not be able to track that basically, because he never basically might not have thought that basically we also basically our software are using in human needs basically, that basically we also do. But his stock exchange basically, whenever his stock exchange data basically gets calculated, that time whatever human needs basically the people had that human needs basically from his software basically, up to that level calculation basically is eClarx basically is having in from his share bazaar basically. So share bazaar is also connected with very deeply basically. So one of the person told that share bazaar जो है ना, share bazaar, that is stock exchange, that is half 80 percentage of India account basically. They are handling 80 percentage of India account. They are having the data of 80 percentage, but not fully basically. But 80 percentage data basically might be having. So anybody want to track basically eClarx basically. For example, one person told that basically ये बीमार कैसे पड़ा? What how basically got disease basically? Then he told that basically he actually had that apple basically. He had that chiku. He basically had that grapes basically. It was created from eClarx data. From that basically he had. But by chance basically assume that basically that person basically who got that disease, he is very powerful. So his stock basically of eClarx will immediately goes down basically. But they can't track it basically, because they don't have the power to track the stock basically. Because if you will track basically, then you need the data na basically, and BSE stock exchange basically will never give that data basically. Why? Because they can't give the data basically. They will never give the data, but they can give the hint basically. But for that also you have to pay lots of things basically, because it's 100 crore na basically, they are earning 100 crore. So in software account basically, that is the in India account, software one data is there, one entry is there. In that basically eClarx data, Capgemini, this, that, Polar is this, that basically. Each and every company basically are creating softwares. Their software are used in human needs basically. Otherwise basically how they can earn 100 crore basically. That is also question na basically. Nobody basically pays 100 crore like that basically. To just store data basically, anybody will pay 100 crore basically. That can be not maintained in Excel file, not maintained in Word file, or basically can be maintained in books also na basically. It's very to have to do the process basically, it's okay basically, it's very fast basically. We can do the process very fast, but process basically can be happening from anything basically. But softwares basically are created, reason they are basically getting used in human needs creation, and they are basically the governments basically mostly are using it, and governments basically never interfere directly nowadays. They keep the software companies that are the base companies like SAP is there, Salesforce is there, Microsoft is there. So like this basically things basically. So I am doing this button, I am basically having this code like this, I had this. So that also basically they are going to track after 2 3 days basically. That Sunil ने ऐसा किया था, Sunil had these specs basically at this time. Sunil had removed these specs at this time. So you can just imagine basically data basically are not collected immediately basically. Data are collected after few days basically, because that need to process in environment basically. So one of the person told that yeah, it's very dangerous to have one life also. One of the person told that to have the one life also in Earth planet, how dangerous it is basically. Because your data is processing in the environment, and nuclear plant groups are basically doing the process. This that basically to have one life also basically how it's very dangerous basically. So that is also basically maintained by the India account basically, so that life can become little bit easy basically. That's why basically the 98% software company basically are not aware about what there is a text box, and text box is created from 1,000 cities, but they should know basically at little bit basically, because it might possible that one day the 1,000 city will get, and basically then basically they are doing to what, going to do what basically. That is also question basically. That is also question basically. 1,000 cities जब खत्म हो जाएगा, when 1,000 city will end, suddenly assume that basically something happened and 1,000 city ended. That time basically what you are going to do? But this will never happen. Why? Because there are to create combo box, check box, radio button, text box basically. It takes maximum 7 to 8 cities basically. No, it's not more than that basically. And this 1,000 city basically is just taken as a number, but 700, 7,000 time, sorry, 700, 800, 900 time backups are done. 900 time backup means you can just imagine. Copy of one specs basically. This is one specs like this basically. 100, sorry, 800 or 900 specs are basically created. So one specs will damage, another specs is there basically. Another damage like this basically. Entire 900 specs basically can't damage at one time basically. That means if it is getting damaged, then basically somebody has done then basically. Intentionally somebody has done. Because 1,000 city basically can't end basically just within a second basically. If it is getting end, then basically somebody has done intentionally basically on the personal issue basically. That's why basically in India account basically people handles personal issues basically. So in next video basically we are going to see little bit more about this topic.